Morning.
Good morning.
My name is Gerry Tarrant. I'm a lawyer in Montpelier. Firm Tarrant, Gillis, Richardson, and Shems. Ron, who testified yesterday, is with our firm. Short background. I am the environmental section head for the Vermont Bar Association, and as such, last year I was asked to monitor and participate through the hearings, which I did. I've decided to monitor more this year, in part because I think it's better to hear from the various members than try to have me articulate what a position is. As you can tell, the members of the bar, as the members of any group, differ in their opinions. And as you've all learned, there are different ways to do almost anything, including regulation. And you can do it well in a number of different ways. But the key is to find a better way or the best way, and then do it as well as you can. Get the right people in, fund it, and we've had 50 years experience. So you have a pretty good idea what the statistics are, what the complaints have been, and what the strengths are. And I think you're right. From my perspective, speaking myself as a practitioner, it's good to have the district commissions. It's good to have local input. It's good to have a more informal process. But the question that was presented to me yesterday afternoon was, could I speak as to how to strengthen district commissions? And so that will be what I will attempt to do this morning. I think a strong natural resources board equates generally to a stronger district commission process. So it depends on how you use the natural resources board and how it involves itself in that process. As you've heard or know, some district commissions like to have advice and direction. Some don't. Sometimes it's just individuals, sometimes it's politics, sometimes it's local, but it varies. And you can't always determine, if you just rely on the district commissions, to assume that they'll all ask for advice or help. Nevertheless, a strong NRB, I think, is one step forward towards having stronger, better, more consistent district commissions. Now, what does that mean, having a stronger NRB? I'm not in the best position to articulate specifics. I'm not here to criticize the NRB. I think, generally speaking, the NRB should be well-funded, and I think it should fill positions that are key to the NRB. And I think one way to look at that is to see what the positions have been, what they are now, and how many are filled. And if they aren't filled, how many aren't filled and why. I think you need a strong staff at the NRB if the NRB is to have the kind of influence it needs to have on the whole process. I think in terms of district commissions, education to the coordinators and the commissioners is essential. I think you'll hear that it's already being done, but I think you'll also hear that it's not as consistent, not as mandatory as it could be, and I think it needs to be tightened. I know in my profession we have continued legal education. I don't see any reason why you shouldn't have continued environmental education and require that they attend, certain members and commissioners and coordinators attend so many hours per year, so many hours perhaps semi-annually, update the decisions, court decisions and other district commissions. I think this is especially important at this point because you're adding new criteria. You're also adding new jurisdictional thresholds and new exemptions. I think the next couple years is going to be critical for education. I think it's going to be critical for the NRB to educate and assist the district commissions so that they can be more publicly oriented to allow public participation. So I think continuing education needs your emphasis in whatever you articulate in your bill. In the late 1980s, 88, 89, I was appointed as an administrative officer in charge of what was then called the CON board. It was the Certificate of Need board, and I was paid $50 a day. That was 32 years ago. I humbly thought that was too little, but I think it's a lot to ask. And I'll give you an example. I had a hearing all day into the evening, and at 6:30, I'm a single parent. I was a single parent then with a disabled child. I told people we were gonna end at 4:30. We extended it to 5:30. We then extended it to 6:30, and this lawyer asked to extend it till 10. And I said no. I needed to go home. The hearing was in Burlington. I needed to get back to Montpelier. That raised hell. Now, it's one thing to be employed full-time and be paid accordingly, and you 2 nights ago I was out till 10:30 on a case. I get paid. But it's hard to do that, and it's hard to ask people to do that at $50 a day. And I think the problem with the issue, of course, is that it trickles into all the other administrative processes, and if you allow $100 a day, then you may have to do that for other administrative positions. So there's a fiscal issue, but I think it's something you need to focus on, because $50 a day I don't think works anymore. I think it's hard. I think it's a hardship, because not only do people give up what they're doing if they're making money by billing per hour, but $50 doesn't pay much in terms of even the gas if you have to travel any distance. One aspect of who the commissioners are is their education and their training, and I think this cuts both ways. I've always hesitated to say that you should have requirements, but you may want to consider those, that there needs to be basic requirements, that in any panel there needs to be some expertise or understanding of certain issues. I raise that simply because some people raise it. I'm not fully supportive of that, because I think it's good to have generic views of this and let the parties educate the people as long as they're capable of being educated. But I raise that because some people do think that it's desirable to have certain skills in education. I do think that for purposes of being a chair on a district commission, that person, if possible, have at least 2 or 3 years experience in the Act 250, sitting as a commissioner, for instance, before they become a chair. I think it takes some ability to handle witnesses, deal with litigious lawyers and clients, and sometimes there's several parties and people are talking at the same time, and it becomes difficult. So I think there needs to be some experience in that, and have confidence in what you're doing and what the criteria are. So I would propose that you consider that. I think that another way, as this moves forward, perhaps, there needs to be, and this is more towards the NRB, which is they need to survey their own commissioners and ask them what they think they need to make their process better. In Act 250, there's some discussion in the bill, in the legislation itself, that there needs to be, in some cases, notice to adjoining towns. I think you should consider allowing or requiring district commission members to participate in adjoining town commissions, adjoining region commissions, so that there's kind of cross-pollination, there's learning, there's dealing with others and seeing how they do it, so that you don't just become uniform. This is the way the three of us do it. We don't want to look at anybody else. And so the fact that a region in the northern part of the state, there may be commissioners that can go over, and maybe it's a requirement, every 6 months they hear 1 or 2 cases in another specific region, and vice versa. Requires a little traveling. I think that cross-pollination is part of the education. They learn how other commissions do it. It's not pulling them out and requiring them to learn how to do it 100 miles away or 150 miles away, but nearby. And I think it would make the commissions better educated, better capable to make tough decisions. I think if you're going to be one of these kinds of members at large where you move, you'd have to have experience. You don't want to just put somebody new and move them over. Maybe a year's experience, 2 years' experience. You have to have some experience before you do that. I think I've heard that, and maybe I've touched on this before, any chair becomes a chair that person have at least a couple years' experience. The NRB had in the past, I believe, both a chief coordinator and an executive officer, I think. I think they merged that position. I think you're going to have to get testimony from the NRB. I'm not the best person to articulate specifics on this. I'm not sure those positions have been filled. But what I'm thinking about is slightly different. I think you have a unique opportunity at this time with the 50th anniversary, with new criteria, new jurisdictional basis, to create and require another position, which would be someone who has had significant experience in Act 250 in the last 10, 15, 20 years or more, that may be retired, maybe thinking of retiring, to take a position with the NRB. And while many district commissions may not like Montpelier sending people down, they might be better, they might understand better if a district coordinator like themselves that has worked in the same kind of work, traveled around the state and assisted them if they'd like that assistance. Help coordinators, maybe if they're backed up, they have a backlog, help them write decisions, help them on a particular case that may be unique with new criteria, help them on a case that's particularly litigious, even though it's considered a minor. It may involve unique criteria, difficult criteria. And this person who's had this experience could travel around the state and would be equipped, and that would be one of the requirements, to travel to these hearings and assist. Maybe do nothing more than advise them before the hearing and help take some parts of the decision and help write them if they need assistance, provide proposals. Take some of the burden off some of these commissions, and help bring into play the new criteria, the new jurisdictional thresholds in a meaningful and consistent manner, while not bringing Montpelier in, but rather having one of their own, a past district coordinator or a past district chair, give them advice how they would do it. The example I came up with last night when I was thinking about this was back in the 80s when Louis Peck was with the Attorney General's office. They made his position, or you made the position, I think the legislature made his position a lifetime position, a position that he had. I think it was when he was still at the Attorney General's office before he was appointed to the Supreme Court by Dick Snelling. And then Bill Griffin came in and took that position. And the idea was to have continuity and to have conformance and to have somebody always there, regardless of whether the Attorney General was reelected or not, or a new Attorney General came in and cleaned house. There would always be somebody right there. And Bill Griffin's been there for what, 35 years maybe? Retired. And somebody said retired, but he still comes in a few days a week. And Louis Peck was there for a number of years before he became. And so I'm thinking of that in the kind of continuity for Act 250 to the district commissions. That's more, while located at the NRB, is really part of the district commissions. So those are my thoughts. I don't think you'd want to disturb the district commission process in terms of having the informal process and bringing the public in.
Any questions? You're the second witness to tell us or recommend that district commissions be reinforced by members of district commissions from either adjacent counties or adjacent regions. Would you have them, would it constitute then a 5-member commission in which all 5 members would vote?
No, I don't think so. I'd keep it at 3. I mean, you could. That's up to you.
Mm-hmm.
It could be 5 members. But it could be 3, and you could have one person move over to another commission so that you don't overwhelm that commission with somebody else's position, but just have one person go over and there's still 2 people from that local commission. It educates, it cross-pollinates, and it retains the local flavor.
About the person at large that would be affiliated with the NRB but would be traveling from region to region, would he be part of the NRB's budget, or where would he fit in the mix? Would he be a volunteer? Or would you
Well, I'm thinking of the members at large being the district commission members, so however they're paid now.
Oh, I guess I was under the impression that this person would be affiliated with the NRB.
Oh, you mean the
guy who travels?
Yeah, the guy that travels, the person that travels. Historically, there's been an executive director and there's been a executive officer and a executive director, and I think then they were combined. That would be with the NRB, but it would be however the title would be, it would be in district commission support officer or something like that. And that person, although that person would respond to the chair of the NRB, I think he or she would have as much independence as you can give that person to work with the different district commissions.
So your testimony is that rather than eliminate the district commission, you think it could be strengthened without...
Well, I don't think there's any question that it can be strengthened. I've talked to district coordinators and commissioners, and they feel they're doing a fine job now. But I think when you take a step back, anything can be improved upon, right? If you start with that mentality, yeah, it can be improved upon, and as I said, you can pay them more, you can educate them better, you can provide assistance to them if they'll take it, or you can create something novel like what I'm suggesting, because we're at a point of creating these climate change criteria, new jurisdictional thresholds, new exemptions, where you could create this position to assist in implementing the statute and see how it works. I don't think it can be a bad thing assistance. It's simply a question of filling that position and finding somebody capable. But I think you're also in a position now. I wasn't here when you had testimony from the district commissioners or the district coordinators who came in a week or two ago. But I think there are a few that are retired, and there are a few that are close to retirement that might be interested in a position like that.
Thank you. Representative McCullough.
So, you're talking about the Natural Resources Board and what might happen there. Is this, in your mind, the going to be the new / once again appellate board that will be hearing appeals from the district commission? Or are you thinking we're keeping our existing NRB and strengthening it, and in the process they are able to strengthen the district commissions? And if that's the case, what about appeals? Who would be handling those?
Okay, so I was asked how you could strengthen the district commissions,
Okay.
and that's how I addressed it. If you'd like to get into the other issues, I can touch on those. I think the strengthening the NRB is simply, and it may be, you may look at it and conclude that it's as strong as you want it.
Yeah.
That's up to you.
Yeah.
But what I've heard in the few times I've been here is that there are positions that have not been filled continually over the years, and the numbers have gone down. And the question is, do you agree with that?
Yeah.
I think that's fair. So that's part of it. I think I wasn't talking about
Okay.
the appeal
Alrighty.
process.
Already.
I think that's up to you. I think if you want the on the record kind of thing is a difficult thing,
Yeah.
given it's a difficult process unless they're all going to go to the environmental division of the Supreme Court, and you've got a lot of those appeals going up on the record. It's difficult to justify it.
Yeah.
I think what Ron Shems was talking about yesterday was a limited
Yeah.
reconsideration on these kinds of criteria that
Yeah.
are new
Yeah.
and jurisdictional thresholds,
Yeah.
so that if the district commissions didn't get it right and a party asked for reconsideration, the NRB could say yes or no, and then they could ask for limited discovery and have a limited hearing and allow those criteria to be fully developed for appeal.
Okay.
I think that's all he was trying to say yesterday.
Right.
And I think it can be that simple.
Yeah. Right.
But my testimony today is, regardless of that, I think you can provide further education and provide this kind of person and maybe a little bit more money.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you.